Do we have a quorum?
Yes, Chairperson, we do have a quorum. Morning, Chair. Chair, I received the apologies from Honorable Molekwa and Patrain. They will be traveling. Honorable Patrain will join us later. Honorable Sembeni is going to join us later as well, and Rev Mishra is on leave as well.
Thank you very much, Babawa. I also would like to indicate that Dr. Groenewald, Honorable Dr. Groenewald, requested to leave early. Oh, no, either he's going to join us late or leave early. I don't see him here, but we do have a quorum, so we could start immediately. Honorable members, as the introductory remarks, welcome to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner, his team, the Minister's team. Honorable members, the highly anticipated national shutdown was marked only by isolated incidences of violence here and there. We want to thank the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner, for the manner in which they had dealt with, amongst others, visible policing, the restraint they used in the show of force, and they showed lessons that were learned on crowd management. The committee congratulates the Minister of Police, the Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, Provincial Commissioners, the NAT joints, and all operational officers deployed on Monday from SAPS and municipal law enforcement agencies. The isolated incidences were dealt with in a professional manner. We would also like to thank the SAPS for the arrests which were made. I'm not glorifying arrests, but it really indicates that the cooperation with municipal police services assisted in the operations. NAT joints, all operational officers were deployed. Once again, thank you very much. Honorable Minister, the brandishing of firearms and weapons, we still have to investigate. The Firearm Control Act makes provision for automatic and semi-automatic rifles, but such licenses are under very strict terms and prohibitions. We need to review the Firearm Control Act, but for now, the SAPS Portfolio Committee, the Portfolio Committee on Police, will focus on the SAPS Amendment Bill. I hope that the SAPS Amendment Bill will come to the committee as soon as possible. In fact, there will be no choice. We will have to take that bill through Parliament this year. It will be a very tight schedule because we have to do public hearings. I request Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, National Commissioner, and the Civilian Secretariat that to give us the roadmap. We still need to do, as I said, public hearings, and we need to get a budget from Parliament for this. Let us apply for that budget early. In fact, it should have been in our planning a long time ago. So we need to alert Parliament to the fact that we are going to have public hearings across the country. May you please also then accept, honorable members, that last week, and I would like to mention Honorable de Blanche was a bit unhappy that we did not discuss the matter of what we call the intercepting devices. I told Honorable, and you wanted this highlighted in the minutes. I would then like us to highlight in the minutes that I responded by saying that the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services would have the matter on their agenda on Friday last week. The SAPS briefed the Portfolio Committee on Justice on the application made by the Minister of Police on the exemption certificate to procure and use listed communication interception equipment under RICA. The Justice Committee approved the application but raised several concerns. The committee highlighted a need for a comprehensive review of the RICA Act to consider shifting the consideration for exemption to the Portfolio Committee on Police in future. As I said to the committee, and as I tried to explain to Honorable de Blanche, this was not within the ambit of the Portfolio Committee on Police. The committee raised concern, this is the Justice Committee, raised concern on the lack of parliamentary scrutiny over secondary legislation or regulations made under the principal legislation. I think that applies to our committee as well. The Justice Committee further indicated that the approval of the application should not be used retrospectively. So the Committee of Police then has to look at what has happened before the Justice Committee approved, since the application cannot be used retrospectively on listed equipment already bought and used. The Justice Committee considered the report, and therefore the report will be published in the ATC consideration by the National Assembly. Thereafter, we will have an opportunity to engage with SAPS on the procurement and use of the listed equipment and ensure that all safeguards against abuse are observed. As I said earlier, the Acting Secretary of Police and the Minister of Police, an agreement was reached that the SAPS Amendment Bill will be fast-tracked for introduction to Parliament. This will be a major achievement for the committee, which will see the SAPS Act being aligned to the 1996 Constitution. Our SAPS Act has never been aligned since 1996. The developments in government and policing policy direction will now be coordinated. This is what I requested the Civilian Secretariat to do last week. The major stumbling block which prevented the SAPS bill through the JCPS cluster since July 2021 is the issue of funding for CPS and the proposed stipends to members of CPS. A workable solution has been found, and the bill will be promoted through the JCPS cluster and cabinet before coming to us. The arrangements for the upcoming oversight visit to the forensic science laboratories in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape are completed. Some loose ends need to be tied up. Any changes will be communicated. I wish to also clarify that the meeting in Eastern Cape will be with the CPFs. It's not an open public meeting. It will be per invitation. As in the past, we met with CPFs, so this is not the new phenomena. On more than one occasion, when we do our oversight visits, we meet with the CPFs. Honorable members, these are the opening remarks. However, I'll allow Honorable de Blanche to speak since we had some disagreement last week. It's not a conversation between de Blanche and I. Last week, I stipulated that I was waiting for the Justice Committee. The Justice Committee has subsequently met. They have also then indicated their way forward, and the matter will then serve in the Portfolio Committee of Police for further discussions. I'm going to note Honorable de Blanche, but there's normally no discussion on the opening remarks. Honorable de Blanche, your hand is raised. You may speak now.
Chairperson, thank you. Chairperson, if you allow me, I just want to also commend the police and the minister and everybody, the whole team, for the work they did with this attempted shutdown. Chairperson, coming to the stuff that you raised, I think you covered it quite well. Chairperson, what I wanted to raise, and I think that is still applicable even today. As we speak at the moment, the police is still in possession of that grabber equipment unlawfully so. They're not supposed to have it. Serious allegations are there about, the procurement of that. There are allegations involving Minister Taylor himself, the previous National Commissioner, and others. Chairperson, and I wanted to raise the issue last week that this committee is responsible for policing, and any alleged crime should be taken seriously and should be investigated. And I just wanted to know what is happening in the meantime. Is it investigated? Who is investigating that? And when are we going to get feedback? Chairperson, there are also other allegations about the provincial office in the Western Cape being infiltrated by allegedly gang members. Apparently, they have free access to the gang unit's premises. We were promised an investigation.
Honorable Tablanche, are you doing your own opening remarks now?
Chairperson, I thought you allowed me to speak.
On the grabbers.
Okay, Chairperson, the other stuff I raised in the past already, and we don't get feedback, and I think that should be taken seriously.
Honorable Tablanche, everything that you raise in the committee, we are dealing with, including putting this matter on the agenda, which I committed to last week. Allegations will be dealt with by the Inspector General on Intelligence and the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. So it will be brought to our committee, the Portfolio Committee on Police, but all allegations regarding this matter is dealt with by the Inspector General on Intelligence and the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. We do not work in isolation. This committee works with all the other relevant committees who are responsible for certain matters. So please, kindly, please bear with us. When we get to the minutes, I'll also indicate on how correspondence is dealt with and my concern about the manner in which correspondence is dealt with. Honorable members, the Deputy Minister has also indicated that he will be leaving at 10. So I think that for a cabinet committee, I'm also indicating that the minister may leave at that time for a cabinet committee. Honorable members, yes, Honorable Blanche.
Chairperson, may I just ask that once again the issues that I raised must be minuted, and Chairperson, may I request that we get feedback on the developments or the progress that has been made with all these investigations to date. Because, Chairperson, we don't get a response on that, and I'm concerned that, it's slipping through the cracks. Thank you.
Honorable Tablanche, could you please listen to me? And I really, really am not going to allow this engagement between the two of us. I said that all the matters that you raised, I will raise under the minutes and the matters arising from the minutes. Can you please acknowledge that I have indicated this? And if you have a problem with the manner in which I'm chairing, I'm prepared to always discuss matters with you. So if you are unhappy with the rulings I make, you have the right to express your unhappiness. But when I do the opening remarks, I do not expect a conversation, and I do not expect you to smuggle other items into the opening remarks of the chairperson. Thank you very much. We will now go.
Chairperson, I'm taking exception that you say I'm smuggling stuff into the meeting. I'm not.
Honorable Tablanche, I gave you an opportunity to speak. I gave you an opportunity to speak on the grabbers. You are now including other investigations. Now that is called smuggling in other items. So you can take exception, but I maintain, as I did last week, that there's processes that we follow. And those processes I will always respect. As the chair, I must indicate processes. I've spent enough time on this, almost 19 minutes, 20 minutes just on opening remarks. Could we go to the agenda items now, please, and then the minutes? We have the adoption of the agenda, the opening remarks, the consideration of the minutes, the matters arising, and then the presentation of the civilian secretariat, and the implementation then under that is the rural strategy. Thank you very much. Do I have a proposal for the adoption of the agenda?
Sheikh Imam proposes.
Sheikh Imam proposes. Honorable Marekwa seconds.
I second, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Marekwa. We'll now deal with the minutes, please. Could I go to page 1? 2? Page 2? Are you happy with the apologies and the attendance, the spelling? You received these minutes well in advance. The consideration and the adoption of the minutes. Next page, please. Matters arising. Thank you very much. Next, the presentation by the civilian secretariat, the deliberations, the resolutions, the closing remarks. Closing remarks, this meeting was adjourned at 11. Honorable members, do we have a proposal for the adoption of the agenda? Before I do
Mean the
the
minutes.
adoption of the minutes, could I look at the adoption and then the matters arising? Could I have the adoption of the minutes, please?
Move for the adoption, Chair.
Honorable Whip
Sheikh
moves for the
seconds.
adoption. Sheikh Kimani seconds. Could we go to the matters arising? Honorable members, under the matters arising, I wish to raise again that we are busy with our legacy report. We have sent you the legacy report of the previous administration. This was emailed to you. This is the kind of document which we are preparing. We do not want to do a rush job with a legacy report, so we are preparing that legacy report early already. If there are any areas of concern which we have in the legacy report, we then need to see, we are not going to just rush through it to meet all our objectives, but we have to see what we've been able to do and what we have not been able to do. I have thus far received reports from Nicolette and Nobesutu on the other matters of the reports. I am awaiting the report which will indicate which letters we have received, which letters we have responded to, correspondence from communities that we have received, correspondence of complaints that we have received, and how we have responded to these complaints. The most important part would be the matters which the members raised, Honorable Terblanche, the matters which you raised, how we have responded to them, what SAPS has done to respond to those matters, and the matters which still need to be addressed. I hope you are happy with this, Honorable Terblanche. I cannot list the matters which were raised and which were not attended to. We'll then prioritize those matters which need urgent attention. Mr. Lobby, I'm still also waiting for his report on the matters that he is responsible for. Any comments on the matters arising? Any other matters arising? Hope ter Blanche, I raised you, have to raise your matters under arising. Are you happy that we deal with all those outstanding comments you have made in the committee and issues which we have not addressed sufficiently?
Chairperson, thank you for your assurance. I'm happy that we'll get feedback shortly on all these other outstanding issues. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable de Blanche. That's why I said to you, you must wait for the matters arising. Honorable members, as I said, the Deputy Minister has also apologized to leave early. Minister, I'm sure that we will be done with most of the presentations by then. Minister, on behalf of the committee, before you leave, once more, our appreciation for the work you and your team have done. The team has done very well. Nicolette, could we send a letter of appreciation to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, Provincial Commissioners, and the team? This takes us to the next item on the agenda, please. Honorable Minister, are you ready with the introduction for the next item? Or you could then indicate who should do the next item. Honorable Minister, the floor is yours. You have sufficient time to give us even a briefing if you like. So the floor is yours, General. As I said, General, you could also now give us a briefing. If I'll also allow members to respond to the briefing, so that we do it now and you are still with us. Honorable Minister, General, you are allowed to speak and you do have sufficient time to do so. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to the members again on platform, the leadership, when Deputy Minister, the management of the South African Police, led by the National Commissioner, the guests, there will be other provincial commissioners. Chairperson, not much to say with the previous. We are coming up with our comprehensive report. There is a preliminary report brought by the net joints, of which we approve at the level of the level of the cluster. I would want to emphasize that point, Chairperson, that as you would say to the Minister of Police and the team, basically this time the cluster, I think it did a good job together. Of course, the chair of the cluster would be the Minister of Police and co-chairing with the Minister of Defense. Even the briefings were done in that format, where the core departments on this one, those collating departments, which will be Police, Defense, SSA, and Justice, Correctional Service. There were other departments invited to work on this matter, like Transport, which, by the way, Transport has been become permanent as a security cluster member. As you would know, Chair, that Transport is one generator of instability and violence. Even the report, as you look at, there have been some areas around Umtata and Tegwini around the owners and operators of taxis. So they have been brought on board to be part of that committee. But also, Chair, that cluster, the JCPS, was summoned by the National Security Council where we made the presentation of how to handle the matters, and the point was emphasized that we'll have to work better than the previous times, especially the year 2021, July. But also what has been emphasized all the time is that the job of security establishment is not to stop the legitimate peaceful marches by formations in the Republic of South Africa, either political, other social, other religious. It's not the job of the police to stop them, but it's the job of the law enforcement to see that they are peaceful, people don't get out of their way, cause trouble, and all that kind of stuff. But also protect those that are protesting when they are attacked and when they are provoked. So it's still the job of both of the law enforcement to protect both sides. Those that are protesting have the right to do so. Those that they don't want to partake on that, they have the right to do so. And I think the law enforcement this time did just their job. And indeed, there were preparations that were made. There was a major one, Chairperson, that we have never seen the mobilization of tires in South Africa in such a big number. And we were told that 55,000 of those tires were mobilized. And indeed, were mobilized. We found them under the bridges, in the corners, hidden under the trees, under the leaves and all that. And the police really confiscated quite a big number of them. Even sometimes those that will claim that there is a legitimate business, we did confiscate some of them, give people receipts, and then return them when the time has come. And because it was a really a threat out there. And indeed, when the day came, you could see that the tires were used. But this time, there was really a quick response, a quick clearance of the road. But that was very minimal, Chair. The other thing, Chair, as I think you did allude to it, which is correct, and generally it is accepted that we had to learn our lessons from the previous happenings. You remember that His Excellency appointed the commission led by esteemed Professor Africa, and one point that was emphasized there was the lack of working with communities between the law enforcement structures led by the police and the communities. Chairperson, I must say, if you really need to congratulate, your congratulations must go to the community formations. They did excellent work. We met them, we worked with them. We met around Durban, we met Amakosi, Wamashu, we met structures in Wamashu, Mlazi, Soweto, Alex. They were all formations were really there. You could see that rather than prevention, there was a lot of demobilization of those that might have been part of it because of the extent of the outreach program that we did, meeting with these formations. But we also, what was raised there is that in that investigation by Professor Africa was the utilization of other formations that might work with the police. Indeed, Chair, though we can't go in details, we work very well with the private security companies. It was a wonderful kind of experience, Chair. I think nothing beats preparation, and nothing beats working together. I will tell the story of some of us not sleeping for 40 hours, Chairperson, literally 40 hours without going to bed. on working on these matters with many other formations. That will be the snippets of it, but it's much broader when I guess we prepare a thorough report where it will be presented, maybe forming some kind of our own legacy too, as I heard that will be dealing with the legacy. Chairperson, that one can't stop thanking the police, the National Commissioner, with his team, the provincial commissioners, the forces on the ground. Chairperson, I don't care who says what. I hear people beginning to doubt that the number of the police does not need to be increased. Nothing beats visibility, Chairperson. Nothing beats visibility. The police were all called back, no leave. Some would come from very far, highly cooperative, Chair, highly cooperative, the members of the South African police. Because one thing that we wanted to do is to put the police close to the masses. Therefore, the request of the soldiers was very limited to the strategic places and the key points. That's why you find them at the airports, you find them at the things like plazas, things like places like Moyo River, toll gates and all that, and strategic arterial road like your N3, your N4. So, but we tried to avoid soldiers coming close to the masses. That was remain the police work. The arrest number, last time I heard, was about 500. I fully agree with you. You can't sing and be happy about that. But the law emphasizes when it comes to the Constitution that it needs to be enforced, needs to be upheld and enforced. So we hope that other segment of the CPS cluster will take its course going forward, and we'll see what will happen. Chairperson, that will be in brief. Then on the subject of the day, I'll hand over to the National Commissioner with your permission, Chair, that they take us through. Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, General Minister. Can we also then thank the JCPS cluster, Honorable Minister, with transport, who has worked as an impeccable team, formidable team to address the situation and also to prevent any loss of life, and remarkably so, damage to property has been contained. The possible damage to property has been contained. Minister, the committee is also seized with the matter of visible policing, and we support you in your efforts to have more police deployed in our country, and we'll continue doing so. We also support the participation of communities and commend communities for their participation. In this regard, we want the CPFs to be established through the amendment of the SAPS Act. In the meantime, we will work with those CPFs who are already there and complement and supplement the work that we are doing. The Charlie report assisted us tremendously. There's members who wanted to know how, the Africa report, how far we have come with the implementation of that report. Minister, thank you for addressing these concerns. Minister, they could introduce the item for today now, please.
Thanks, Chair. Chairperson, you have given me, I don't want to abuse this, but that was one major point, Chairperson, that we lost not a single life, and there was no major destruction of property. For the fact that we can simply say we know in Soweto one shop at Dube that was looted, and nowhere else that you have received those reports. But as we were preparing, our major first prize was the protection of life, of which it happened. Thanks, Chair. I'll give it to National Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. General, you don't want the Deputy Minister to introduce, or are we going straight to the National Commissioner? Normally, the Deputy Minister introduces these policy matters. I have also
I think
noted,
the minister is correct, Chair. Let's allow the National Commissioner to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I'm not undermining the General. I'm just asking, since that has been the practice in the past. National Commissioner, before I allow you to do the presentation, I have noted the hand of Honorable Shembeni. Honorable Shembeni, you allowed to come in now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know, are we going to deliberate on this issue of the shutdown after the presentation or what? Or must we start now? Because I've got some few questions to the Minister concerning this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Shembeni, the Minister said, and the Chairperson agreed to this. If I did not agree, I would have indicated this to the Minister. The Minister committed himself to bringing a report to the Portfolio Committee. Honorable Minister, once that report is done, we will have a thorough debate and discussion on the matter. You happy, Honorable Shembeni?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, in that matter, because
Yes,
I've got
we are awaiting.
boiling issues about this, what happened. I've got, a lot of questions. I hear the Minister says, yes, there was no loss of life, yes, but we've got people who were seriously injured. That involves the police and the army. I've seen that with my own eyes. So I'll talk about that when we come to that. Thank you very much.
Honorable Shembeni, if you have urgent matters that you would like to raise, could you please do that in writing to the chair, and the chairperson will address these matters whilst we are awaiting the report from the minister. Thank you very much, Honorable Shembeni. We would like to have those concerns that you've raised, and we'd like to solve them or address them before the minister does his report. I wouldn't want us to wait if there are urgent matters which we could address urgently and immediately. Honorable National Commissioner, the floor is yours. Thank you, National Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, the Minister of Police, Deputy Minister of Police. Chair, we are going to do a presentation on implementation of the rural safety strategy, progress, and also capacitation of rural police stations. The presentation will be led by Major General Binar. She will do the presentation, Honorable Chair. General Binar, you can proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members, the Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister of Police, National Commissioner and Senior Officers of the Police and the Secretariat.
My humble apologies before you start. Apologies for interrupting you. Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, you are excused, so I will not indicate again that you have left the meeting. Thank you, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister. You are allowed to leave the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Much appreciated. We could continue with the presentation. My apologies for interruptions.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I was just going to say all protocol observed and then continue. The presentation focuses on the implementation of the rural safety strategy, and we included in our presentation the implementation status, the progress and successes with the implementation, the crimes predominantly affecting rural areas and the statistics in this regard, and the capacitation of rural police stations. And go to the next slide. The rural safety strategy, this is just a recap of what the strategy entails. It was originally approved and implemented in 2018, but we reviewed the strategy and relaunched it on the 2nd of August 2019. It was launched on the 11th of October 2019 in Makado, and then we started with the implementation. But at the end of 2020-21, we realized it was necessary to again engage with our stakeholders. So that was why there was then a summit on the implementation of the strategy on the 27th and 28th of June in 2022. The strategy aims to address rural safety as an integrated day-to-day policing approach by creating a safe and secure rural environment. And it's built on 8 pillars. The pillars includes Pillar 1, which focuses on the effective capacity, human and physical capacity of police stations. Pillar 2, that focuses on police service delivery and the back to basics approach for service delivery in rural areas. Pillar 3 focuses on rural policing infrastructure, the police stations, the victim services, for example. Pillar 4 focuses on the governance system for rural areas to ensure that there's clear and responsive governance structures for policing in rural areas. Pillar 5 focuses on communication and marketing and awareness raising in terms of crime prevention in rural areas. Pillar 6 focuses on community involvement and stakeholder collaboration. Pillar 7 on the organized crime threat and the use of organized crime threat analysis in rural areas. And Pillar 8, the monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the strategy. Go to the next slide, please. Then the implementation status and successes. Success of implementation is largely dependent on community mobilization and getting all our stakeholders involved, and it's therefore supported by the implementation of the community policing strategy, the community in blue concept that's part of the community policing strategy, as well as our sector policing approach in rural areas. It's also supported by the establishment of rural safety priority committees that is in place from the police station level, districts, at provincial, at national level. Honourable Chairperson, I noted the message from Honourable Mr. Blanche that the sound is not very good. I will try and move a little bit closer to the microphone. Is it better now? So we can go to the next slide, please. The strategy was implemented in 791 of our 906 police stations that we've categorized as either wholly rural or a combination of rural and urban. And in those 906 police stations, 895 have implemented sector policing, 902 have implemented community police forums, and there are 19,344 community blue patrollers active in those police station areas. You can go to the next slide, please. Then we had the Rural Safety Summit on the 27th and 28th of June last year. And one of the issues we wanted to focus on is what do we need to do to revive the implementation of the strategy or strengthen the implementation of the strategy. So at the conclusion of the summit, a task team was appointed to work with the police, and a plan was adopted that addresses 3 main themes in support of our implementation of the strategy. The first is that we need to have a focus on the responses to crime in rural areas, specifically serious and violent crimes and stock theft, but inclusive of community mobilization and partnership, working with the structures that are already in place in rural areas, as well as the use of the technology in that regard. Then we needed to focus on addressing gender-based violence with feminized specifically in rural areas. And then we needed to work with our stakeholder departments like agriculture, land reform and rural development, for example, on specific issues in rural areas that affect quality of life and conflict and often drive conflict, like agriculture and rural development and land reform. Our next slide, please. The SAPS is leading the response to the first theme, the first priority that I mentioned, the response to crime in rural areas. And there we have focused on our existing initiative, the Eyes and Ears project, which was initiated by the SAPS and Business Against Crime South Africa to fight crime jointly with the private security industry. Now, that is an existing concept. The E2 concept entails linking the private security industry's geographic deployment footprint, like the guards, patrols, escort vehicles, and air support, to the SAPS operational control centers in an area to share information with the police and in order to enhance situational awareness. And I think the Minister also referred this morning to how well that assisted us now during the mobilization for dealing with the national shutdown. In order to ensure that rural police stations benefit from this concept, we then developed an E2 rural concept that was presented to the Rural Safety Summit by a team inclusive of the SAPS and BICSA. And this concept was then also workshop with the task team appointed following the Rural Safety Summit by the Minister. In rural areas, this concept would build on the use of available technology, but will also be extended to rural safety stakeholders. For example, farm watches established by the rural community or rural neighborhood watches or community and blue patrol groups. And on the next slide, in the implementation of this concept, the E2 rural concept, we have decided to implement it in 3 pilot areas to refine the concept. Those 3 pilot areas are Bella Bella and Limpopo Province, the West Coast District Municipality in the Western Cape, and Impendle in KwaZulu-Natal. The pilots will test the sharing of information through linking the SAPS district operational command centers with the private security geographic footprint, as well as the community-based operational centers that are already in place. And the main focus is on the sharing of information with the SAPS in order to enhance situational awareness and improve responses to crime in rural areas. The next slide, please. The crimes predominantly affecting rural areas include stock theft, murder and attempted murder, rape, assault GBH, armed robbery, including vehicle hijacking, robbery at residential premises, intimidation, arson, and malicious damage to property. And the following slide provides a 3-year comparison, but of the third quarter information on murder, as well as all the major incidences of violent crime affecting rural areas. On the next slide, we focus on the third quarter comparison. So it's basically October, November, December of 2022 compared to the same 3 months in 2021 and 2020. In that time, in the current financial year, we had 11 victims murdered, which is the same figure as for the previous financial year, October to December. And then in 2020-21, so 2 years ago, there was a number of 19 victims of murder in that time. Now, those murder cases, those 11 murder victims, in those cases, there were other crimes associated with those murder incidences: 6 robbery at residential premises, 1 rape case, and 1 stock theft case. Then on the next slide, we will look at all the incidents of serious crime and violence in rural areas. So not just murder, but all the serious incidences. And the 3-year comparison there indicates that in 2020, October to December, we had 88 incidences, which went up to 127 in the last financial year. And in the current financial year, third quarter, we documented 59 cases. Those serious cases include 3 cases of motor vehicles and motorcycles stolen, 4 assault GBH cases, 2 rape cases, 12 attempted murder cases, 41 robbery at residential premises, and 2 robbery with a firearm cases. Then if we look at the next slide, we look at the case management of crimes predominantly affecting the rural areas, but for the first 3 quarters. So this is not just for the third quarter, but from quarter 1 to the end of quarter 3. And we have documented 30 cases in that time, 15 still under investigation, 2 not yet enrolled, and 13 are cases at court. We have 30 arrests affected in terms of those cases. We have cases not yet enrolled. I just want to go to the paper slide because I can't read there. The 26 cases at court, 4 cases not yet enrolled. Then on the next slide, we look at the capacitation of rural police stations. An analysis was done of all police stations by an integrated team that focused on the criteria used to calculate frontline service requirements, the allocation of posts, as well as the allocation and reallocation of personnel in the following categories. So we looked at police stations not rendering a 24-hour service 7 days a week, police stations with 4 or less members allocated per shift, police stations with 5 to 7 members per shift that are at risk of not sustaining a 24/7 service should absenteeism increase, new police stations that we're planning for and that has to be staffed when established, and rural police stations. Then on the next slide, the analysis was used to determine the minimum staffing levels of these police stations, and in 2021-22, an adjusted police station post allocation for each province started based on that analysis. The recruitment project 10,000 then ensured that staffing levels are increased in 2022-2023, and the project was extended to increase staffing levels in 2022-2024. In addition, we currently have 93 stock theft and endangered species units in place in the police, with 15 satellite units, which are geographically placed within the provinces to effectively and address the demand of service delivery at all police stations in terms of the investigation of stock theft and endangered species related crimes. On the next slide, we then speak to the evaluation of stock theft and endangered species units. Our organization development component has started a review of the stock theft and endangered species units in the country. The investigation includes the evaluation of all the units, inclusive of the resources allocated to them. The recommendations that will follow after the completion of the investigation will include a gap analysis of the shortages of resources, both human and physical, as well as an indication of the workload criteria for post-establishment within the environment and the dysfunctions identified at units during the course of the investigation. The approval and implementation of the recommendations will be focused on supporting the rural safety strategy in relation to the investigation of stock theft and endangered species related crime, and an envisaged completion date of the report is for April 2023. Then our next slide. Chairperson, in conclusion, let me just say that the rural and agricultural economy is of the utmost importance to ensure the prosperity, food security, and natural diversity of South Africa, and it is therefore essential for the SAPS to work closely with our partners and government and civil society to ensure the safety of rural communities in all parts of South Africa. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you, honourable members. The sound was not very good, but I allowed the presentation to go ahead because they did have certain challenges with connectivity, and the sound was good enough for us to hear. Honourable members, I'm really sad that Dr. Groenewald is not here, because this was, or has he joined us? Because this was specifically put on the agenda for not for a specific member, but due to the fact that Honourable Groenewald wanted this to be attended to. Our Honourable Minister is still here. Would you like to comment, Honourable Minister, or General, can I take questions? I think he has left. Honourable members, I have the hands now. The first hand is Honourable Whitfield. Could you may raise your hands now? I'm taking questions and comments. Honourable Whitfield, you may start.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to SAPS for the presentation. I think it's very useful that we get this update. But Chairperson, I will limit my enthusiasm this morning to ask a whole lot of questions, and I'll restrain myself. One of the most important questions I think that we need answers on is related to crime intelligence, and to what extent, and this is the question, to what extent are these community patrollers and the existing rural safety strategy providing the relevant intelligence for us to be able to prevent crimes by dismantling some of these violent syndicates that operate in areas like the rural areas surrounding Umtata, where they travel into the town in order to commit crimes and disappear into the villages around Umtata in King Sabata, Dalindyebo municipality. And we know that there have been a number of mass killings in Iti, which is a village outside Umtata, as an example. So to what extent crime intelligence is reinforcing the existing rural safety strategy, and what results have been yielded because of cooperation between the deployment of these community patrollers, the coordination with crime intelligence, and then the dismantling of these crime syndicates that operate almost
with impunity. And I must say, Chairperson, I want to acknowledge the complexity of policing in these rural areas. I've just come from a village outside Dordrecht in the northeastern Cape, and the conditions there, in terms of access, distances, etc., are very challenging. When I went to Beatty Police Station last year, the police officers there told me that they've got sufficient vehicles, but they don't have sufficient personnel. And the vehicles that they do have are completely and utterly useless on the roads in those areas. So the second question that I have, first one related to crime intelligence and results that have been yielded through coordination with this existing strategy. The second question is around resource deployment to combat the challenges in policing these very difficult areas, such as air support, either helicopters or fixed wing support, drones, for example, which I'm not aware SAPS has really taken advantage of in terms of policing rural areas, drones owned and operated by the South African Police Service, and whether they have a very specific deployment of resources. So instead of sending a Nissan bakkie to a very deep rural police station, surely we should be rather sending more Toyota Land Cruisers. Are these considerations that are taken into account when trying to accommodate rural police stations in the conditions in which they police, as opposed to simply just deploying resources as they would to any other police station in an urban environment? And specifically, how we are actually using not just the partnerships with community structures, which is absolutely critical and which we've seen this week is very effective. And I would agree with the Minister that that is the future of crime prevention and visible policing in South Africa, is the extent to which SAPS is able to cooperate with community structures on the ground. But what resources really, in terms of technology, are being deployed to crack down on syndicates, organized criminal syndicates that are terrorizing rural communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Whitfield, Honorable Tablanche, and then Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Chairperson. I am covered to a large extent by my colleague Andrew Whitfield. Chairperson, I also wanted to deal with the physical resources and, let's say, vehicles suited for that area. Quite often, if you visit these police stations, they even driving around in a bakkie or VW, Golf or whatever, obviously not assisting them a lot. Okay, Andrew covered that quite a bit. Chairperson, my next question is, the police stations in those areas are in a usually in a very, very dilapidated state. And, people are battling to have sufficient accommodation. New police stations need to be built. And I just want to know what are going to be done in terms of ensuring proper accommodation and proper facilities that will assist these people to pursue their or execute their function. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, allow me at the outset to congratulate South African Police Services in the way they conducted themselves on Monday. Indeed, I think you have clearly indicated that you have what it takes to protect South African citizens. Together with the involvement of other stakeholders, the community, other security agencies, I think you all performed exceptionally well. And let me also congratulate and thank all those police officers, men and women in blue, who sacrificed 40 some odd hours of their time, their family time and things, to be there to protect civilians, but not only civilians, the property of many of our people, which we expected and could have been destroyed had it not been the role that South African Police Services have played. But it clearly indicates one thing, Chairperson, that if all the role players come together and even the stance of the communities, we can do better. So I just want to thought I'd just share that before I go on to the issue of the rural. It looks like there's been a caucus between my two colleagues from the DA, because they seem to be on the same. But I think they're absolutely correct. The question that we need to ask, particularly when you talk about rural safety, is the availability of resources that SAPS has conducive to the environment in which they are working. Vehicles like cars and bakkies are not always suitable when you talk about the terrain, particularly in rural areas. And that's why I must say my colleagues are correct. You're talking about helicopters and drones and other stuff. Because in order for you to achieve success there, you must have the tools of trade. Now, I want to say something to SAPS chairperson. You know, we provide a budget, and I belong to the Standing Committee on Appropriations as well, based on not necessarily the requirements, but the request that is made by relevant departments. And I think what SAPS should be doing, chairperson, is, you see all these matters that are raised, whether you've got drones, whether you've got helicopters, is your vehicles good enough? Do you have enough manpower? You know, all these things, you need to take it all into consideration and come and put it at our doorstep and say, if you want us to solve crime and prevent this crime, because it should be about prevention, this is all the tools of trade we need. And this is what it's going to cost. Now, it's up to you, politicians and members of parliament, to ensure that those resources are made available. Because a lot of what is going on has got nothing to do with you. You are there to come and prevent it. But all the other departments have a role to play in aggravating the situation to the extent it is. So I am saying, push the buck. Come to us and say, this is all what we need to fight, so that we don't come back and attack you. We need to ensure that you have the necessary resources to be able to carry out your duties satisfactorily, to the satisfaction of members of parliament, particularly, and political parties. So that's the first step. The second step is the issue of the benefits that police officers, I'm glad my colleagues are talking about housing as well. Police officers must stay closest to where they work. You cannot allow them to continue being vulnerable, living in townships and things and far away from where they work. We need to ensure that, and you need to have a rotational system so that when you provide accommodation, you can move them to different areas. At the moment, you're not able to do that. So it's easier and more effective when you want to actually fight crime. The issue of crime intelligence has been going on for a very long time, and maybe you need to tell us what measures are you putting in place to improve, because we've established that police crime intelligence does not necessarily work. Your military intelligence does not work. Your state security agency is not effective. And that is what I think is adding to the challenges that police officers on the ground are going to face in terms of fighting crime. The other question is, these police stations, we are having load shedding. And I know that in one of the questions that I posed, I've got an answer that so many police stations have generators and things, but it's not about having generators, it's about it working. And most of these stations that have these things are not working. And there is a major problem between public works and South African police services. That is why we've recommended maybe police must take charge of its affairs, its maintenance and things, because the whole system doesn't seem to necessarily work. Then the question is, do you have the necessary expertise in terms of human resources in your police station, in the rural communities as well? To be able to well, intelligence is just one of the aspect of it, but of course, you talk about numbers, and you are correct, visibility will work. But to the extent that crime is increasing in the country, and I must admit that if you look at the ratio of police officers to community, to people or members on the ground, it's major discrepancy. You're not near reaching the target anywhere near. But should, and I'm asking this again, should the focus of attention not be to address the root causes of the high levels of crime, whether it's in rural communities or urban communities, and start addressing those concerns and challenges that we have there so that we can eventually move to a preventative system. At the moment, all the police can do not prevent crime, they can only deal with it after the crime has been committed. So that is my concern, that I noticed that we are not addressing the root causes of crime, but rather, coming in after the crime is committed, and it makes it very difficult. What we need to do is save a life, not come out to the life is gone, and then try to do something about it, and then it must go to the entire criminal justice system. People are getting bail overnight. Even though, look at what has happened. In this lawyer that was kidnapped, gone for 48 hours or so. All that happened is he went to the court the next day, and the suspects have been given 500 and bail. 500 and bail. That's all that has happened. So the entire criminal justice system, for me, needs to be looked at. But I just want to emphasize on the fact that the police must come to us and tell us what you need, and push the buck onto us and say, now provide us with these things if you need us to sort this problem, because without that, our hands are tied. We can't do it. I'll stop there, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Imam. We wish you our prayers and wish you well over Ramadan and the fast. Honorable Whitfield, I see your hand is down now. So it is Honorable Shembeni and then Honorable Siabi.
So, thank you, Chair. I'm very much disappointed with this so-called SAPS.
Honorable Siabi, you are next, but Honorable Shembeni, your network is a bit bad and there's noise.
Yeah, where I am, it's very, very quiet. Very, very quiet. I can even hear a fly here. I don't know where is the noise coming from.
Honorable Shembeni, your sound and everything sounds better now. You may start.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very, very much disappointed with the whole SAPS and its management. We cannot come here now and say, like Honorable Sheikh is saying, talk about the lack of resources and what. No, there is nothing like that. The SAPS was all over the whole of South Africa as we speak on Monday. And looking at that, if you talk about resources and say they don't have resources, whereas they spent so much money for only one day in South Africa to stop one political party from picketing, having a shutdown, and then you come here and say that the SAPS does not have resources. What is that? There is nothing like that. In all those rural areas, they were there with these CASPAs and everything. And then what? Why are we saying they can't be combating crime in other difficult areas? Whereas now, during this day, they were there. So they don't want to work and combat crime where they are supposed to, and where they are involved in crimes, you can't find them. Or you find them when they are protecting their own people. So we can't be saying SAPS does not have resources. All the choppers were all over here. They were working. But when it comes to crime, they don't have diesel. What is that? We can't be saying SAPS don't have resources, Chair. You were saying here that the SAPS was all over South Africa. So if SAPS can be everywhere in South Africa in one day. Yes,
Honorable Shembeni. Honorable Shembeni.
I'm listening
Honorable
to you,
Shembeni. Please do not hijack my meeting. I said a report will be coming to the committee and we we will discuss the report. Right now, we are discussing the rural strategy, please.
Yes, but we are talking about.
I told you the
resources
report will
on
come to the
I mean the resources
rural
in
strategy,
the rural
please,
areas.
not Monday. Yes, but don't
Chairperson,
discuss Monday in my meeting when I say there's a report coming.
Chairperson, I'm not discussing.
We will
the
have a
issue
report.
I'm discussing the issue of resources in the rural areas.
Thank you. You may continue.
That the rural areas does have resources. The police stations where I'm coming from, it's in the rural areas. I've got 6 to 7 police stations in those areas, and there are resources. There are police officers. There are cars there. So I'm struggling just to find out. Yes, I can hear in other areas if they talk about Western Cape and the like. I don't know what is happening there. But where I'm coming from and from the areas where I went to, I have seen that they do have resources. They do have manpower. And if we've got a shortage of manpower and we've got money that we can use in a single day, that we can use to get members to be in those areas that have a shortage of manpower, I don't see a reason why we can use such money. Thank you, Chair. And then I think I will address these issues, other issues, in the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Siabi. Next.
Thank you, Chairperson. And let me greet all who are on the platform. Let me join other colleagues in congratulating the SAPs for the job well done on Monday. It may not be 100%, but I think as compared to the July 21 unrest, this was a serious improvement. Thanks very much to the National Commissioner, the Deputy Minister, and the Minister. Chairperson, in the main, I think my questions were covered because my questions were going to revolve around resources. But the question I want to ask, I saw the definition of what they call a rural area. And like other colleagues have said, we don't see visible policing in villages, in farming areas. Maybe that's what they will try to work on with regard to resources. And I want to support Honorable Sheikh Imam on his submission that when submitting the budget, SAPs must make sure that they include everything so that when they allocate funds, they've considered everything. But on the issue of definition, the villages, the farming areas are clubbed together. My question is, in the farming areas, there are more of a private property, which means you can't just walk in at any time. You'll need permission. Most of the time, the gates to the farm is closed and so on. How is this strategy envisaging dealing with such a challenge? Okay, in the villages, for example, you can walk freely. Once you have resources to engage more police officers, they can walk. But in the rural, in the farming areas or farms, it becomes difficult. If one can be clarified on that one. Otherwise, other questions covered by colleagues. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Siabe. Honorable National Commissioner, you will respond and indicate who else will assist. Honorable members, if you want another round of questions, you may do so after the response. Thank you, National Commissioner and your team.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. On the first question of Honorable Wakefield on CI and patrollers, yes, indeed, in most of our rural areas, we do have rural safety committees. There are constant interaction between them and what we call rural safety coordinator. Each police station have a rural safety coordinator, and continuously they liaise and information is relayed in that regard. We do have collection capacity, that is crime intelligence capacity, that focuses here in this environment in the rural areas, with, of course, limited limitations in numbers, especially in some of the deep rural areas, but we do have capacity to collect, and continuously there is interaction. That's why in areas like Kwamajola in the Eastern Cape, we were able to identify certain suspects who were involved in the burning of houses there. The only challenge of some of the areas, for example, this one that I'm talking about, Kwamajola, is that the road infrastructure there is totally almost non-existent, and it takes police many hours to get there. And in the process, if you have to travel a distance of less than 20 kilometers for 2 hours, then even if you were to catch a suspect, they have seen you long ago, and by the time you arrive there, you won't find them. So those are some of the challenges that impact on this policing in these areas. But yes, station commanders, the community structures, together with the intelligence, they do share intelligence, and we do arrest some of these suspects, especially in the area of PG where the Honorable Wakefield spoke about. The challenge there was that there was this community structure that was working with the police, and some of its members, they then broke away and they became like a vigilante group. That's where the problem came about with those killings. But we have since arrested some we are still, we know them, we are still in the process of getting them, and also changing that structure to be cooperating with the police and not take the law into their own hands. In terms of vehicles, Honorable Chair, the provincial commissioners, they know that the instruction is deploy the right vehicles at these rural areas. We continuously do that. We did take stock late last year in terms of what is the vehicles in these rural areas, and we keep on replenishing. But if there are still areas where we have wrong vehicles, we will definitely be happy to replenish them with the right vehicles. On the use of aircrafts, yes, unfortunately we have limited aircrafts, but when there are crime scenes or there are operations, stock theft operations in those areas, we do use our helicopters to support communities in the rural. The TMS, they are in the process of acquiring drones. They are also training members. Honorable Chair, it was a very long journey in terms of getting here, but at least now they've arrived at a stage where they are procuring and also embarking on training of members. So I think the next time, in 2 months' time, we'll be able to report the deployment where we have this specific equipment. Accommodation, Honorable Chairperson, the state of accommodation. The DIFCOM supply chain, as you're aware, they have got this yearly program in terms of building of police stations. I know that there are a number in Northwest and also in Northern Cape where there has been, 2 of them has been completed, but I will later ask Brigadier Tembani just to indicate the maintenance and building of police stations in these specific areas. Thanks, Honorable Sheikh, for the invite. We will draft such a report in terms of what is it that we need to do policing. We'll draft that report, Chairperson, and we'll make it available to yourself. Most of our police stations, Honorable Chairperson, do have generators, yes. Some of them are under subs, some are under public works, and yes, there are challenges in terms of some not working and so on, but we do, in general, we do make sure that those that are working, they are being made use of. In some police stations, we have 2 generators, and the only problem is that since the load shedding, the expenditure on fuel has been very, very high as a result of the use of generators. Of course, we can't do any other. We can't stay in darkness. But yes, we do have these generators that some are fully under sub, some are fully under public works, Honorable Chairperson. I'll ask General Mothala to do some addition, and thereafter Brigadier Tembani in terms of infrastructure. And yeah, let's go in that session. General Mothala.
Thank you, National Commissioner, and greetings to the Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, all senior managers on the platform. Just to add on the issue of deploying technology such as air support, the Air Wing is a national competency, and we deploy all our air support capability across all 9 provinces according to our operational planning and operations. And then, Honorable Chairperson, on the issue of addressing the root causes, from time to time we do a root cause analysis. To ensure that as we deploy our resources, we are able to actually address them according to our crime patterns and threats, and also ensuring that where there is issues of environmental designs, we are able to work closely with our stakeholders to address the root causes. And then on the visibility in villages and farms, we also, that's why we have police stations that are also strategically placed to ensure policing in villages and farms. But some of these initiatives that we're implementing, like the E2 Rural, is also helping us as a force multiplier, including our deployment of community patrollers and community police forums, so that we can work very closely to ensure that we create a safe and secure environment. And then that's basically that from my side, Honorable Chairperson. Lastly, from our side, the South African Police Service, we are committed to ensure that the correct resources, especially to police those rural areas, are actually from time to time when we do the compliance site inspections. We make also recommendations in our reports to relevant provincial commissioners so that they can also ensure that where there is a need to actually get the correct resources, that it is done. I submit. Thank you very much, National Commissioner.
Brigadier Tembani on infrastructure.
Thank you, General. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and on all honorable members, generals and colleagues present in this meeting. Good morning and all protocols observed. General, you've covered most of the issues. I just wanted to bring you and the committee in confidence that the issue of infrastructure to rural communities is receiving attention, and it is such that for this year we have a project in KZN Osutu, which is at an advanced stage of construction and is earmarked for completion and handover by the end of the financial year, where where practical completion will be achieved by the professional team. In terms of addressing the remaining stations, General, I can give General a summary for the new financial year, where we've got 17 projects at different stages of construction in terms of planning, site clearance, and planning and design. However, it's only 2 police stations that are earmarked for completion in the new financial year. The police station projects for the rural communities, if you look at generators and construction as well as boreholes, are earmarked for implementation during the MTAF cycle, and it's reflected as that in our infrastructure development program, General. That is my submission. If all is in order, General, may I stand down?
Yeah, thanks, Honorable Chairperson. I think there was a question, I think, by Honorable Siabi about we can patrol freely in villages, and then in farms, how are we doing it, because it is locked. Normally, the police in the rural areas, they do have a relationship with communities, including farmers. That is the reason why we have got a rural safety coordinator at each police station. So those farmers would know, and the rural safety coordinator would know as to when and how do they patrol. If they have to access certain places, it is normally through the rural safety coordinator, and they do not encounter problems in accessing certain areas, be it for service delivery or just normal rural or farm patrols. Thanks, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, National Commissioner. Honorable Shembeni, is that a traditional hand, or should I take your hand again? Honorable members, I'm ready to take another round of hands if you so wish. Shembeni? And then
No. Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Tablanche.
Chairperson, thank you. I am quite happy to see that the police are making inroads with this plan of theirs. Chairperson, just, with this new numbers, the 10,000 and whatever the numbers are going to be per financial year, I just want to know, in the planning around those numbers, how long will it take the police to be able to, put sufficient or enough manpower at these police stations? That is my first question. And my second one, Chairperson, is just maybe a bit of a concern. We heard now that 2 new police stations will be completed in the coming financial year. Now, Chairperson, if that is the case, I am very concerned in the sense that I think that it will take the police 50 years or more just to satisfy the current need, leaving alone new needs that will possibly still be identified. And I just want to get some indication from the police. Are they concerned about that? And if they are, what do they plan to do? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable De Blanche. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Sorry, Chairperson, thank you very much. Did you mention my name? I was on a call, Chair. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you,
thank you.
Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you very much. Yes, Chairperson, there's some confusion on the ground. And it's fueled by the statements that we make as politicians. Perhaps I would want to make a request to SAPS. If you'd be able to tell us, based on what happened on Monday, how much of resources did you have to make available so as to deploy so many more officers all over the country? Like I just established, the Defense Force alone cost an additional 166 million rand.
Honorable
I'd like
Sheikh
you to give us a...
Honorable Sheikh Imam, I have
Yeah.
requested the minister to give us a report on Monday, including the details of the costs and whatever.
Okay.
We cannot ask questions according to what we have heard. I'm begging you all to allow that report to come. I will try to have that report with us soonest so that we can have a comprehensive discussion on Monday and not have little bits and pieces of what we have heard or seen in the media. I'm asking that we allow the minister to bring that report and the National Commissioner to bring that report, and then we discuss it. You may continue, Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Chairperson. Now, I wasn't going to get into a debate or expect any answers, but I was just want to say what I would like to see on that report so that we don't go to and from, because there's a perception that's been created that we have a lot of resources to do what we did on Monday every day, which is impossible. So that's why I wanted them to give us when they on that report and how it affects other relevant departments or programs or projects of SAPS when you have to reallocate the money from one to the other area. So we have a better understanding of how we take this to the people on the ground. Thank you. I'll just stop there for now, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable Shembeni, your hand is up again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was looking at, since the issue of Monday, our ministers were able to come together and plan towards this shutdown. When can we have a physical meeting to deal with this issue, face to face with the minister and the national commissioner, with other political parties? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Shembeni. Nicolette could again, please, can we get that assistance to have a physical meeting? Other committees have been able to meet physically, and we must be proactive. We need that physical meeting. We said we're going to have a strat plan. Please, if we cannot be told for such a long time that we cannot meet physically, it's part of our planning. We've been saying this since last year already. Thank you, Honorable Shembeni, the National Commissioner.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. The first question on the manpower. On the last project 10,000, which passed out in December, Honorable Chair, yes, there is some of those members that we allocated to rural police stations. We targeted especially those police stations which have got 5 or less members per relief. And in this current allocation, or the new allocation, we are also going to focus on the very same police station, make sure that we also capacitate them to have increased numbers, so that when there is one member who's either off sick or is absent, that the shift do not collapse. So we are we are focusing on those police stations. You mostly found them in the Eastern Cape and the majority, as well as Northern Cape. The Western Cape, Gauteng, they are quite far better in that regard. So we focus on those two provinces, including Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Yeah, that is on that one. And in the building of police stations, I think as Brigadier Tembani said, yes, there are those that will be finished. I think it's Moesha, Limpopo. There is one in Northern Cape. I think it's Ring Fastmark. In Northwest, there is 2 police stations that will be finished. Unfortunately, Honorable Chair, I don't have the whole program as to what is being renovated and what is being built. So, but the Brigadier did mention, and I know about these ones that I'm talking about. I think those are our responses, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, National Commissioner. Honorable members, I think we have come to the end of this session. Honorable members, I have requested that those who have not been part of the meeting, Dr. Groenewald and any others, that they do send me emails about this policy. We do take the rural policing strategy very seriously. Many of us have rural constituencies. So if you have read this and you have listened to the inputs there and you still have certain concerns, if there's details that you would like to raise about your constituency, I would encourage you to do so and put that in writing to the chair. Honorable members, finally, we still do not have a researcher. So we still, as we had Nicolette acting as the researcher and the content advisor, we now have Nicolette as the content advisor and as the researcher. This situation is untenable and unacceptable. The letter must be going again to senior management regarding these challenges. We only have 3 staff members with Mr. Lobby, and this makes our work extremely difficult. The committee members expect us to perform miracles when we have 3 staff members with a chairperson to manage all the requests that you have. Up until now, the staff has managed tremendously, but I am putting so much pressure on the staff. It does create tensions, it does create complexities. So I do understand that you want immediate responses, but honorable members, we have 3 staff members. The one is my executive secretary, the one is the secretary of the committee, and the one is our content advisor, who also has to be doubling up and as the researcher. This has been going on since Dr. Kinnis left. It is really unacceptable, and I don't think it can continue for much longer. Parliament has been speaking about the limited budget and resources that we have. Our committee has been seriously affected by these budgetary constraints. We do not want to compare ourselves with other committees, but it is extremely tough for our committee to get anything. We are asking that our work be considered as the work we do for the impact in the communities and fighting crime and corruption. Our job is not, and our mandate is no longer just for compliance. When we do go for the public hearings on the SAPS amendment bill, it will also be expensive. These bills have to come to us early. Whilst we want to fast track the bill, it will have financial implications, and I don't think we sent it ahead of time to Parliament for budgeting. Again, we'll be told that there's no funding available for this. The Civilian Secretariat, you came to, and National Commissioner, you came to the committee on the very last minute with the Poktatara bill. We had to push it through committee. We had to push it through the NCOP. These challenges, the bills, the amendment bills and legislation depends on SAPS. SAPS has not amended the SAPS Act since the Constitution was adopted. And the SAPS bill and act has been unconstitutional for a very long time. If this is the situation that we have, then and that you have not aligned the SAPS Act, the SAPS Amendment Bill, and you have not fast-tracked the SAPS Amendment Bill, your work has been unconstitutional since 1996. There has been developments in government and policing policy. You are developing policy without a SAPS Act. Again, please, the matter of funding for CPFs, that is your responsibility, but the matter of funding cannot be dealt with since 2021. We could continue with the SAPS Amendment Bill without the funding and indicate that this will be dealt with later. We cannot stop doing those public hearings before we have the clarity on. We cannot stop those public hearings. Can we deal with a budget? But in the meantime, while you are waiting for this budget to be concluded, we need the SAPS Amendment Bill fast-tracked. Honorable members, the number of bills, when we do our legacy support, our legacy report, you'll find that this SAPS Amendment Bill has been on the agenda of the committee for years now. Totally unacceptable. That this committee, at the start of our term of office, we spoke about the legacy that we leave will be one of which we inherited things and we are just leaving it for the next committee. Honorable members, we'll be meeting each other physically at the City Hall today. We have sufficient time to get to the City Hall. There are people who are leaving the villages early. I wish you luck and see you at the City Hall today. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much, National Commissioner, for the presentations. Thank you very much again for the work of last week, because the preparation started very early. We'll await that report and have the discussion of that report in line with the other reports we have been receiving on public policing. Those reports of Maracana are still outstanding. The discussions on them. There are those reports of the Mufamadi report. There's a number of reports that we have not discussed. The Maracana report also spoke about public order policing, not just the one on Africa. Nicolette, I'll work with you on that item for the agenda. If it does not come in this term, we'll certainly have to prioritize it for the next term. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, WERP. Thank you, NASCOM and your team. Thank you,
Thank you,
Nicolette.
Chairperson.
Thank you, Nicolette, Nolundi, Vulo.